Unturned is presented by UpdateAI.
We give it so much thought for our customers. We don't give it enough thought for our employees. And then we're like, okay, we want you to now go give these customers the most amazing onboarding experience. And they're thinking back to their onboarding because if you think about it, employee experience and customer experience are quite similar, right?
Yeah.
Like whatever. Employee onboarding is broken in CS.
It's so broken.
It's so broken. And I think oftentimes, there's just this idea that like you're going to just figure it out somehow, right? Like we'll pair you up with a buddy, et cetera. And we don't really look at the long-term effect of having people come on board and we're just like letting them figure it out. Because when we say let them figure it out, they're either wasting a ton of time. So they're not going to be up and running for months potentially where they're comfortable and like actually producing, or they're going to be like messaging other people in the company. So now you're wasting two people's time potentially, right? For just not having a really thought out onboarding process. And that applies for both, at the executive level and also at the, IC level.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode, the 101st episode of Unturned. I'm Josh.
And I'm John Johnson.
Yeah.
But what's up? How's everybody? You're here this week, Josh. You've been out of
Special
office.
Appearance.
It's been great.
Yeah. But I'm excited about our guest. I don't know anything about her.
Do we
I don't
have
even
a guest?
know how to pronounce her last name.
Oh.
But we've been talking here. We've been bantering, offline for 5 minutes, and she seems cool. And I know she's got a great background and has done some really cool traveling lately and figuring out exactly her next path. So Paulina Staszuk. You
got it the first time.
Yeah, I did. Paulina Staszuk.
Yeah, Staszuk, Staszuk, whatever kind of like it sounds similar. I'll respond to it if someone says that is my last name.
Okay. The last one sounded more authentic. Staszuk.
Yeah.
What's the background for your last name?
My parents are German-Polish.
German-Polish.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I've got German-Polish.
Very close, actually. I'm actually quite impressed. But yeah, the first one works. It makes it easier on a lot of folks. So hi, I'm so happy to be here.
We're happy to have you.
We're so happy. So for those, the other fun thing that we like to do, Paulina, that Josh is super into, is to just talk about how often I spend time with our guests outside of this podcast.
Don't do it.
If you listen to last week's episode, but no, really. So Paulina, I met Paulina through Pavilion. She brought me on as a
cares.
No Pavilion. Hey, this is CS related, Josh.
Okay, good. Then we care.
This is the problem. Josh doesn't realize that there's life outside of customer success, and that's when most of customer success happens. But Paulina brought me in as a guest speaker for the CSM school at Pavilion. And I had the honor of, you were the proctor and what's the title? What was the title? You were the boss.
I'm
the dean. It was such a great title.
I still don't know what that means, but I love it.
No, it was good. But I ran a couple of cohorts with you and I've just loved your content. And I really loved sitting through the sessions that we did at Pavilion. And I've still stayed in contact with a number of the students that we worked with. I actually had drinks with one of them out in Seattle. I don't know if you remember Ann Rice.
Oh, great. What'd you guys have to drink?
Oh,
were there appetizers?
Josh really doesn't care.
What was the name of the server? Did you give them a nice tip?
No, actually I did. I've got the receipt around here somewhere.
No, but you know what? Why don't you go get it? We'll stay right here.
Hey, Josh, I'm drawing a line here. Paulina, what have you been up to since Pavilion transitioned from online education into on-demand?
Well, you'll be glad to know that your courses are immortalized because you are there on demand forever.
I love it. And I'm getting paid a penny every time.
Every time, right? And so, I've been at Pavilion. I was working full-time. So background on me, I am a customer success leader. So Josh, don't worry. We're going to stick to CS things. I was in CS for a long time. And then in October of last year, I decided to leave. All things, including CS, just all things, basically. I left everything.
Exit.
I just exited everything. And we can kind of get into that too, but I'm back in CS and I'm back in leadership in CS. And so, it's the really high level I don't know how deep to go now because I'm looking at Josh's face, wondering if I've passed the
Check
limit.
the box.
No. We want to go deep on this. We want to go. We want all the gory details. No, don't listen. My hazing of John. Please don't let that get to you, because that's
Did everybody see those balloons?
That's a Zoom thing. I think if you do this, you get
the balloons. Yeah,
but we don't have Zoom. Why is it? What?
Maybe it's run by Zoom.
Okay, so Josh, the reason that I set it up that way is one of the things that we have talked about in the past is like the idea of mental health and the idea of taking a break. And you are just coming out of a break. This was a conscious decision for you to refuel, to refill, so that you can recalibrate where you're going with your career. Yeah. I think that there's an interesting moment to talk a little bit about, like, you were hustling, you were working, you were doing Pavilion. We were talking about podcasts and newsletters and all of these things that are extracurricular. And if you know Josh and I and Christy, there's a ton of extracurricular work that we do. I would love to hear your thoughts on how you went from being out there, being a thought leader, being a leader in the space, and then kind of breaking away and feeding yourself, and then what it's like to kind of move into where you're going now with a fresh perspective.
Yeah, so you're right. I think I'd been hustling and building for probably the last 10 years. And I was so happy for where my career was at. But it was taking a toll on me, my relationships, my work, and so far as I was working for this gem of a company, amazing, with some of the smartest, kindest humans. And I was just like,
what was the company?
Jane App.
Jane App.
Shout out to Jane App. Lovely people, wonderful company, amazing product. And I was just lacking joy. And it was coming out in ways that I think my leader probably saw more than anyone else too. And, I wasn't sure if I wanted to I wasn't sure what to do. And if I wanted to make the next 10 years great, I realized I really needed to kind of get quiet and get clear on what it was that I valued, what made me happy. And what I was really trying to achieve in this lifetime, right? So I gave them a couple months notice. I, did a bunch of stuff and did some friendships, relationships, whatever. Started rebuilding a number of good habits. And so quickly, I ended up just diving into courses and reading books. And then I was like, let's take this up a notch. So I decided to walk across Spain. I did the Camino de Santiago.
Hold on. There was a pivot there that I didn't expect. I was reading courses and books, and I decided to walk across Spain.
Yeah.
I just wanted that to land.
Yeah, it was a thing. I don't know where that came from. I was chatting with a friend, and he's like, it sounds like you really don't know what to do. I'm like, I don't know what brings me joy. I really just don't know, because you do school, you go into work, you go from one career to another career, one job to another job, or you stay in the same job, and you're just doing kind of the same thing. And eventually I was like, I don't know what makes me happy. I don't know what makes me interesting. And I just sort of felt like I thought I was going to walk away from everything, and suddenly this box of amazing ideas was going to open up, and I was going to become the most interesting person on the planet, because suddenly I had things that I could do. And most of the time I was just like, okay, well, I'm reading and I'm doing some pottery, but I was like, I don't know I don't know what this is. And I think I was still sort of kind of really worried about okay, well, how long of a career break can I take? What is a reasonable amount of time? What is that going to look like, et cetera, et cetera. And so knowing that about myself, I was like, I have to set some ambitious goal that's going to keep me from potentially looking for a job prematurely, so that I can just, get out there. And I was like, well, if I'm walking across Spain, that's going to be perfect, because how do I take a job and then be like, I need 6 to 8 weeks off to walk 800 kilometers?
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing.
I would love to hear how that conversation goes.
Yeah. Well, here's the irony. The day I landed in Spain, I got headhunted by a lovely, lovely recruiter. And the entire time I was walking across Spain, I was interviewing for this job, which I got the day, 2 or 3 days before I wrapped up. And I started about a week after I came back. So I feel like it served its purpose in some ways, but I had a lot of time to think and get clear and just be quiet, which is such a privilege. It's such a privilege. And I don't think we get enough time to do that. I mean, think about all the, who can really, I don't have children. So that's, that's easy. I could just,
it's already quieter than
it's already quieter, I think. Right. But I had the opportunity to just get up and fly across, I'm in Toronto. I got to fly across the the ocean, and basically walk. And every day look the same. And I met fascinating humans that really kind of sparked ideas of like, well, does this make you happy? Why are you doing this? And I got to think about, why am I doing this? And honestly, I don't know why I was doing that. Some days I was just like, everything.
And you're going to give us the answer, right?
I mean, I'd love to give you the answer. But yeah, I think that that was what I needed to do in order to really get some of that clarity and feel like I had a full break. And even then it wasn't a full break because I was interviewing, but it still was, it gave me enough to come back and feel like, okay, I'm on the right path. I know exactly where I want to be. It wasn't CS. It wasn't the company. Maybe it was some stuff I was going through, like what was it that I needed to kind of break free from and reset?
Yeah.
And that clarity was huge.
How is that walking into this new role? I mean, you're washing the Spanish dirt off of you and walking into an office again, right? Is it, and still in CS, you said?
Yeah, in CS, in remote, obviously, so not in an office necessarily. But it's been, I feel like I have a whole different perspective. Like I used to be a bit of a worrywart. I mean, I still worry about things, but I'm definitely a little bit more like, okay, there's always tomorrow. You'll fix it tomorrow. There's going to be another day with its new challenges, and every challenge is basically an opportunity for us to go and make it better. And so I have a different perspective. I think I'm far more like positive and lighter in general. Lighter. I thought I was going to lose 20 pounds on this walk. Let me tell you about this. So just as a caveat, it's such a piss off. So here I am walking 800 kilometers across Spain. I was like, well, if I don't learn anything, at least I'll drop 20 pounds. Let me tell you how you lose no weight, because there are wine fountains along the way, along the Camino. I kid you not. Like there's a wine fountain. Every day you're eating bread and cheese and jamon, and it's delicious. And then you're going out for dinner with people that you met along the way. Anyway, you do not come back lighter in that sense. But I did come back lighter. It was good, like emotionally, mentally lighter, in the sense that I had some clarity of like, what are the things that I value? And what am I going to when I walked away from this, the last day I was like, what am I going to take away from this? We had someone walking with us, and he's like, what's the thing that you're going to take back with you? And what I realized was, you're carrying your own stuff on your back the entire time you're walking.
Literally and figuratively, I would assume.
Both. Yeah, exactly. So you're kind of there, and you're like with your 12K or 8K backpack. Mine was extra heavy because I have my laptop, so I was just like, why am I doing this? I was trying to break free from the chains of, internet and society, but whatever. Here I had my laptop, it was fine. And I thought about it. I was like, if you had to put a weight on every problem that you obsess over, and you put that into your backpack, and you had to walk with that, would you carry that day to day, every single day across the country or anywhere else? And it's just given me a perspective. I'm like, how much weight am I attaching to that problem? Even if it's an ounce, let me tell you, 1 extra ounce in your backpack? No, like it's just a hard no. So it's I think it's shifted my perspective on a few things.
So then,
let's relate this to customer success. So I love the story. John, you're giving me that look, but this is what differentiates us, right? We got the BS and the CS.
Yeah.
So, by the way, I love Spain. Studied abroad there, and I'm jealous of that experience.
Yeah.
You're now carrying your backpack into your new job, and you have all these dumbbells. And they have different weights assigned to them. Mm-hmm. What's the order and the weight of the different pieces of CS baggage that you are unloading from your backpack?
Of CS
the pains, the pressure, the weight that you carry on your CS leadership shoulders that you want to unload.
Yeah. So a couple of things come to mind, right? Like I think it's the whole thing of not one thing needs to be done in order for everything else to be perfect. And so that like idea that there's going to be perfection never happens, and accepting that is always going to change. And that for me was a bit of a struggle, because I was like, oh, I need to have this before I can have that. And then in general, in terms of like,
what's an example of that?
Kind of like, I don't know, I need to have organized Notion pages before I can, like just little things, right? Which I think every startup has as a problem, it's hard to find stuff. And then, In terms of, I mean, see, it's such a broad topic. That's such a broad question. I'm like having a hard time answering.
I know the Spain story is much easier.
No, I guess the way that I would frame it is, how are you going to carry into this opportunity of keeping things light, of not being a worrywart that you mentioned at the beginning as you're kind of into this? How are you going to carry that into what you're doing with your department, right? How do you impart that onto your team? How do you impart kind of that clarity that you have of saying like, hey, tomorrow there's going to be a new set of problems. Obviously, your boss is going to tell you all the things you need to work on. So how do you keep that peace and that space when customer success is such a reactionary, high, volatility market right now?
Yeah, that's such a good. So I have to see what that ends up looking like. It's that I'm 4 days in, so I haven't been challenged with that yet. And I'd like to think that, something's going to come up and I'm going to be like, that's baggage that I'm not willing to put in my backpack.
Nope.
And I think right now I'm very much like, okay, it's going to be good. Everything is like an opportunity for us to improve. None of these things are complete blockers. And I'm coming in with that mindset. And I think that in and of itself, hopefully will rub off on folks on my team so that, as a non-anxious leader, they're not going to be like, oh my God, I needed this yesterday either. It's just like, there are priorities that we have, and these are the priorities. And so really being able to bucket what matters and what doesn't matter versus, everything matters all at once, meaning nothing matters. So I think we'll see when that actually happens. But as of right now, I'm pretty calm in terms of like, okay, there's a problem. I'm going to dissect it. The things that I can do, I'm going to do. And the things that I can't do, I'm going to either like assign to somebody else. We're going to see if we need this or not. And then we'll move on from there.
Okay. Back to the dumbbells. So you've got, you're offloading the idea that you don't have to be a perfectionist, that you don't need to let like perfect setup get. So I think what you're saying is like, oh, I don't need $100,000 CSP before I can have a health score. I can do that in Google Sheets, right? Exactly. Something like of that nature, right? Okay, sure. Cool. So that's what, 10 pounds? We got 25 pounds. We got 25 pounds in this backpack, like you said. Yeah. So what else we got? What else are you offloading? You're not bringing to? We don't even know where you work. Where's this new job?
Yeah, I haven't even updated because it's so recent. It's a company called UpdateAI. It's very similar to JNAP actually, but for the vet space.
Oh, nice.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So UpdateAI. Get it?
Yes. Yeah.
Dog
exactly.
tail.
Yeah, exactly.
Love a good pun.
Yeah. Let me think. Josh, it's such a difficult question for me to answer because I've been offline for so long that like basically all of it has been offloaded. How about what we're putting in?
I like that.
There we go.
I like that. What are you bringing in your backpack?
Yes.
I dropped all of it and was like, what do I actually care about? Right. So the things that I really care about that I'm willing to carry, weight on is like, how are the people feeling? Making sure that employee success is key, right? So focusing in on what are the things that I can do to ensure that they are able to service our customers? Because at the end of the day, like if my employees are happy, my customers are going to be happy. There is a correlation there, right? So looking at what are the ways that we can improve onboarding potentially, how can we improve onboarding for customers as well? But then just, more broadly, what are the systems that they're currently using and really kind of focusing efforts there versus the noise of the background. So everything else that is not related to people, efficient process, or quality products that we can bring in or improve is sort of noise. Those would be like the 3 big dumbbells, and everything else just like little ounce packs.
Pick one. Pick a dumbbell. Pick one of the 3. Which one's worth 20 pounds? And let's dive into it.
Oh my gosh. I would say right now, at least, because I'm just starting, I'm really, really focused in on just like employee onboarding and the impact that then has on customers and the ability for customers to have a really good experience. Because if you have highly trained, really happy employees, you're going to have a better customer experience. They'll be able to do certain things. So, even if there isn't necessarily like amazing process or amazing products, you have employees that care and they have enough knowledge of the tool base, they'll be able to like make things work to a degree. So that's the thing I'm mostly focused in on right now. And I think that employee onboard, we focus so much on like customer onboarding. Mm-hmm. I think employee onboarding, most HR people are going to be like, oh, why'd you say that?
Sorry, they don't listen to our podcast. It's fine.
Perfect. Employee onboarding is broken in CS.
It's so broken.
So broken. And I think oftentimes, there's just this idea that like you're going to just figure it out somehow, right? Like we put you up, we'll pair you up with a buddy, et cetera. And we don't really look at the long-term effect of having people come on board and we're just like letting them figure it out. Because when we say let them figure it out, they're either wasting a ton of time. So they're not going to be up and running for months potentially where they're comfortable and like actually producing, or they're going to be like messaging other people in the company. So now you're wasting two people's time potentially, right? For just not having a really thought out onboarding process. And that applies for both, at the executive level and also at the, IC level. And that's really, I'm curious, like, do you have any thoughts right now, Josh, on like, where are you at with onboarding? Would you say it's a good, like, employee onboarding?
Well, that's a loaded question.
CEO.
Hey, everybody, it's Josh. I'm taking a quick break from the podcast to tell you a bit about UpdateAI. I started UpdateAI to solve two major challenges for CS teams. The first is that we save CSMs 4 to 5 hours per week with our productivity through AI. Secondly, we give leaders a window into all the conversations across each account and the entire portfolio. So we help knowledge transfer, we help increase the coverage model of your CS teams, and we help you detect emerging patterns in what your customers are telling your CSMs across all the risks, product feedback, advocacy moments, and expansion opportunities. So come check us out at www.updateai. It's completely free to sign up and trial. Well, that's a loaded question.
CEO, as a CEO of the company.
Yeah, I don't get into that minutia as the CEO of the company. I handle higher level, more strategic, valuable things.
Red flag.
Red flag. Oh, there's so many, John. There are so many.
Oh, I know. I'm on this podcast every week, Josh.
Yeah. No, but I actually do want to. Can we put a bookmark into? I want to understand what like the before and after looks like for you, because you're also going through onboarding yourself.
I am.
So part of me is I'm thinking, well, wait, does she just want a better experience for herself? No, I'm just joking. But I want to know. But I do want to talk to you about what that before and after should look like in your mind, and what strides you're taking for that.
Yeah.
We do something that I'm actually really proud of at Update. So I have this amazing executive coach. She coached me when I was at Boston Consulting Group, and she stayed with me as an advisor through the startup. And she's so generous with her time and everything. And so we do something called a Clifton's Strengths Finder assessment. You've heard of it?
Yep. Yeah, I've done it.
Great. So it's, it's focused on your strengths, not weaknesses. It's positive, right? But it can still be telling of where your energies lie, basically. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's kind of more about like influence and control, which could tell you something too, right? But everybody's got different areas that they spike. Yeah. And so every time we're a small company, but every time we have somebody new come into the company, we have them fill out a strengths finder. Mm-hmm. We have them speak with Katarina as the coach. And then we bring together a town hall for the company to go through, and we look at how our aggregate strengths finder profile as a team, as a company has changed, and what that person is going to be bringing as a new dimension. And now where maybe we have to shift our focus based on the strengths and the areas of energy across the team. That's generic. That's not CS related.
Yeah.
On the CS side, I hired somebody who really knew their stuff and said, okay, go and figure out how to run a CS motion. And luckily she's been amazing at that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's so I'm going to come back to that for a second, but I'm also curious because John, you agreed with me like wholeheartedly.
Absolutely.
And so I'm curious, like, what has your experience been?
Yeah, I think CS gets the lowest focus for onboarding. I think we just kind of get thrown in. We get added to sales training or we get added to marketing training. And we're just like, I mean, you'll figure it out when you go along. And I do think that the core competency of driving successful customers is a truly successful employee. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's fundamentally broken how we onboard our CSMs. And I know Josh is spending a lot of time. He's got a head of CS, which is kind of running the show right now. I'm actually really excited when you guys start hiring, Josh, CSMs, just to kind of see how like that diverges a little bit, because there is a very good focus on it. What I've noticed is we, expect as individuals, we want a career path. I want a promotion every year and I want movement and I want growth. But like the problem that brings into, and this is where I think I have a question for both of you as leaders, is I mean, like the happy customer needs stability. They need to know who to go to. And if we're just shifting accounts every 12 months, how are we ever going to like actually like get successful customers, right? We have salespeople that sell into the same accounts for 5-10 years, right? And they build these relationships. But CSMs get onboarded very, very quickly, and they get thrown in front of a customer very, very quickly. And then every 6 to 8 months, they have new customers from churn or whatever. So how do you build out, and how are you thinking through stability? Those are the things that I ask in onboarding. It's like, yeah, you just train me, but you're going to move me in 6 months. So what's the point here, right? And it's just this rinse and repeat, right? And we wonder why our customers are confused as to where to go for support or where to go for help or, who to talk to on the account.
Yeah. So I appreciate the Clifton Strengths Finder call out, because I do think that that's such a great resource, especially if you're like growing teams and you're trying to figure out where the strengths are basically and how you can recalibrate. With smaller companies, I find that oftentimes those types of resources just aren't there, right? You don't have an in-house career coach. You don't have access to a lot of those things. But I do think that regardless of like the strengths in that instance, I'm going like baseline, like what does it actually look like to onboard someone? What does that first week look like? Do we throw everything at them and expect them to kind of figure it out, and they're drinking from a fire hose for the first 2 weeks, and then maybe they'll catch on to something?
What do you think it should be? What do you think it should be?
I actually think it should be far more structured, right? So that first week, first 4 days, you're spending basically with, the HR team. You're getting all of your systems onboarded. You're meeting the heads of different departments to understand the purpose of those departments. You get, a sense of who the folks are. You are reading about potentially the industry. So I'm in vet sciences or vet clinics, veterinary care, basically. And, that first few days, I don't come from that background. I would like to just have all the resources to understand clinic life and who the customers are really as humans. Yeah. What do they care about? And so I'm looking for that information, that data, but just having that sort of in front of you as like, this is what we learned about our customers. Here's what you should know. Yeah. And just some baseline things that you can kind of get your systems sorted so that you're not like 2 weeks in being like, oh, I don't have access to HubSpot. How do I, like it's awkward. And it's just like, it slows you down because now you're going back trying to figure it out, etc. So just dedicate that time. Don't throw people into a million different meetings, just the all hands, maybe a one-on-one with their manager, and then get them going and then work them through like a proper system. So I manage onboarding, customer success, and customer support teams at Digital. And really, you can actually put all three groups, including sales, I would argue, through the exact same onboarding when it comes to post that first, call it 3-4 days with your HR org. And that is literally like a step-by-step of the product, right? So an overview of the company values, and just sort of, if you think about it from a perspective of, you can build this out in Notion, but it's sort of like, all right, who are we as a company? What do we value? And then you think about people's different learning styles. So you have a couple of videos, you have support tickets that are included there where they can respond to them. Someone actually checks their responses to see if they're accurate, to see if they're able to find the information in different places, right? Like you can test these skills as you're onboarding them by just being a little bit more thoughtful about what onboarding actually looks like for your employees. We give it so much thought for our customers. We don't give it enough thought for our employees. And then we're like, okay, we want you to now go give these customers the most amazing onboarding experience. And they're thinking back to their onboarding, because if you think about it, employee experience and customer experience are quite similar, right? Yeah. Like whatever. Get hired, you get onboarded, etc. And then, you kind of have this like customer success, which is your people ops person that's just continuously there for you. And so there should be, I think, like different ways to train people. And this is something I've seen done before very successfully, where you have videos, you have quizzes, you have actual assignments that are based on support tickets from previous customers that folks can read and like solve a problem. And they're actually, that forces them into the software. And as they're doing that, you're not throwing the entire software, but let's say your software is modular, you get them into that first, overall, main dashboard. And then you're like, okay, now we're going to add on this thing. So here's some questions about whatever, product that's an add-on that some of our customers might have. And here's the information, and here's the learning, and here are the help center docs, et cetera, et cetera. So people are starting to like understand how to navigate the information. And then you can start to layer on the different processes as well. But just understanding the product, I think oftentimes is just like the first step, right? And really spending enough time. And I genuinely believe that salespeople should be doing that too. And heck, if I could get every sales exec to agree that salespeople, upon graduating this onboarding program, which hopefully lasts like a month or whatever, will go on support tickets for a solid 2 weeks before they actually hop into sales, I think we just have like a better SaaS ecosystem in general.
Well, there's this idea of like patience. Like I think what we are lacking is patience. I think sometimes like we do have to get things up and running very quickly because we've got a board or we've got numbers that we got to hit, and that's very real. And we have to work against that for sure.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, like to that detriment, like we're actually not even giving people the building blocks that they need to be successful. Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder, I always kind of like pivot into like, you know, like how AI is like helping understand problems. But also then I tend to think about like the way that we live now because everything's remote. These problems didn't necessarily exist when we were all in the office, right? They were different problems. But now it's like we've got employees sitting at home and they're a new employee, and it's like if they don't have anything to do, they're just sitting at their desk, right? So what I'm curious about is how you're thinking about leveraging technology that is either being built or currently available to kind of like elevate what we know about our employees without like getting super micromanaging, because that's where this tends to go. Is that if we do put an extra emphasis on enablement and employee onboarding, you know, everybody gets teams and they're like, oh, they're tracking my clicks and they're tracking this. And then it becomes micromanaging, which is the exact opposite of what we want. How are you thinking about leveraging tools and processes to keep that human element in this remote world?
So let me just, what I'm understanding from the question is sort of tools that we would use for onboarding employees.
Yeah.
I honestly don't think we necessarily need all these fancy tools for onboarding. You can do this.
Cough.
You can do this in a Notion doc. Where I think you're going to get the most value from tools are ones that are actually going to benefit your customers as well. So the things that your employees are most likely stuck on is, where do I find this information? How do I know it's accurate? And so on and so forth, right? If you solve for that, you're also inevitably solving that for your customers. So let's assume you're going to use AI for all your support docs, right? That's great. Maybe you can create something. Maybe you're using I don't know. I don't want to name a company because I don't know if they're any good. So, but like an AI tool that aggregates all of your internal and external sort of support information so that you can basically type as a human and say, like, where do I find this? Or what is the answer to that? And you know, if there's anything that you can build into making the employee experience and the employee onboarding experience easier, I think those tools, the ones that you're actually using, are the ones that are also going to somehow help your customers in the end. So this AI bot thing is a perfect example, because now when your customers go to your support pages or your help pages or, you know, reach out to someone, they can type the exact same question. They'll likely get a very similar answer.
Yeah.
Right. So those are the types of tools that I would have, you know, on my mind, especially being in the startup space. You know, you're looking at different budgets. You don't have, you know, billions of dollars where you're going to go and spend just because you want every fancy tool. And in terms of onboarding, yes, you could have, you know, an ever after and all the other fun stuff for employee onboarding, but really you just need a highly organized Notion page.
Yeah.
A couple videos and some good, you know, like hyperlinks, and maybe a Google form that acts as a quiz, and a good Slack integration with people that are actively checking it, and a group internally that is dedicated towards actually supporting the new hires, right? So a new hire channel where they can ask, or a triage channel where they can ask all of their, like, you know, questions that are like, where do I go for this? And people are actively there and supporting them through that process. And then, you know, that's also searchable. It's not the best search, but we know it's searchable, right? So, new hires come in, it's like, and that also then builds, like, we can look back to that to be like, is this something that is valuable for us to improve, right? So we're looking at not only product improvements for our customer, but like process improvements internally to get our people up and running faster so they can find the information they need so that they can be better, you know, advocates for our customers.
Yeah. We implemented that at user testing. We have it's called Newbie Shoobies, and it's our internal channel. And no leaders are allowed. It's actually one of those things, like that. One of the things that we learned is that when we put all these new people in a Slack channel with their boss, they don't want to ask what they would consider a stupid question.
Yeah.
Because they're just like, my boss, I should probably know this, right? So we like kicked them all out. And there's a gal on my team, Lena, who runs this channel with all of our new employees, and they're in it for the first year. And even now, after I've been there for a couple of years, I will go back into there and like scroll through and be like, oh, that's right. That's how you do it. Right. Yeah. And it is super helpful to have that active intentionality behind it without it being, okay, now you have to log into this platform and download this CSV and then follow this like it's just, we get into tools and solutioning, which is like, no, I just need an answer.
Yeah. Yeah. And oftentimes I find that we get so hung up on, I need this tool to do this thing. And then you get all these tools. And just the same way, like I'm sure anyone's company, you've sold to a customer and they're like, I need this tool, but they don't actually have the process set up in advance of getting the tool. CSM tools are probably the best, like CS tools are probably the best example, or Salesforce or whatever, right? They're like, we need a CS tool. And then they get the CS tool and they're like, okay, import your health scores. They're like, we don't have a health score. Now it's delaying it forever, right? So forget all of that noise. You just need to have a very clear process. Like, what are we trying to achieve with this person? By the end of the time that, they're in onboarding, they can respond to X number of questions that are related to, that are actually from customers. They came in from customers. We answered them before. We have, like, how do they act? This is how you learn. Some people learn by doing. And so you do kind of like, you want to cover off all of that, right? You learn by doing, you learn by listening, you learn by reading, you learn by watching. Have it all there. Do it once so that they're not bombarding, Jane over in Jane, because I worked for Jane.
Yeah, I was going to say, call back.
Right? They're not bugging Jane over, in the other department in product to ask about something, because it's there. You already put the time in. And I know it's sort of like, one of the things is that you have to get buy-in from like even senior leadership, because these things take time to build out. But ultimately, when you look at the downstream impact, you're going to save time, right? You can then just have a small team that's there, that's responsible for updating it. And you put that onus on your new hires as well, where it's just like, if something in these records or in this, onboarding manual or onboarding process step, university, whatever you want to call it, seems inaccurate based on information you found, like pop it into this channel, like update it. And then you just have like a team that's just find it, fix it, let's go. Josh,
you mentioned Slack, you mentioned Notion.
Yeah.
John and I have been sitting here doing Notion bingo with you. No, but Notion's great. We use Notion too. It took me a while to catch on to it. At first, I actually really didn't like it. But then once you kind of learn how to use it, you're like, wow, this is very helpful. What else is in your stack? What else are you bringing to the team here or not?
In terms of tools.
Yeah, it could be as it relates to the onboarding.
She's not bringing
experience.
a heavy backpack, that's for sure.
Yeah. So it's a light backpack, right? So she's just going to bring a couple of like 1 pound dumbbells. So what are you bringing?
Yeah. So I think like those are the baselines. I think you can get a lot done with just those two. I think Loom is also another one that is important. I also really like GIF creators. So there used to be a creator called Record It.
Yes.
It doesn't work anymore. Now
no.
And so I found an alternative, which is actually really good. And you're going to hate me because I can't remember the name.
It's fine. We'll put it in the show notes.
I'll put it in the show notes. I have it on my other laptop. I downloaded it. I was looking for it recently. And that's just like one of those where you record and, it kind of plays this little feedback or playback loop on a regular basis so that you don't have to have a whole Loom video.
Well, and a lot of companies block videos embedded in emails. So this is like, there's like a little pro tip in there, like as CSMs, like, cause I work with a lot of enterprise, and if you embed a video, their firewalls will block that video, and they will, no matter how many Looms you send, it will not get through, but a GIF will make it through.
A GIF will make it through. Exactly. I will send that over so you can add it to the show notes. This thing worked perfectly. I tried it the other day. So that just like tools that they can use to make themselves like more productive, etc. Internally. So we're still talking like employee onboarding to make sure that they're set up with all the tools that they need so that they can go and be successful. Even some of the smallest things like, a Clockwise app, so that if you're notoriously bad at updating your Slack status, so people know how long potentially to wait for a response from you, especially if it's another department, another team, etc. Like having something like that installed, such a game changer, because it's off your plate. It'll just run off of your calendar, right? You don't have to explain to people that, hey, I'm taking a 15-minute break.
Really? So the Clockwise app integrates with Slack, and then it'll automatically change your status based on your calendar? I'm not being facetious.
I was like, are you saying?
No, I'm not being facetious. I need to go get the Clockwise app. That's good to know.
It integrates with your Google Cal and then also with Slack, right? And Slack has a Google Cal integration, so you can totally do that, which is great. I like the Clockwise app. I think it's a lot better. But
right.
So these are some I'm also, you got to realize I'm coming into a very small startup right now. And so I'm thinking of what are the tools where we can optimize that employee experience without necessarily spending a fortune? Because what's the point if we don't really, really need it? The other things that I think are really important that, maybe not necessarily as part of onboarding, but something to help the company, how are we keeping documentation and processes up to date, right? So something like a Guru, and having those systems, have a score of what their quality is over time. Sorry, Josh, I'm
no, you got it.
Good. I love it.
Yeah.
There's a handful that I'm start off, right? And
no, it was good because this is coming from the profile. You're not an enterprise investing in Gainsight or whatever right off the bat, right? So this is from a different profile of somebody who wants to be a little bit leaner and scrappier and get the right, as you would say, processes set up.
She's Canadian. Everybody, let's just be clear.
I get it. I love it. Go Oilers. They're playing tonight. I'm all ready for it.
Is that the one Canadian team that you know?
Well, the one left. Canada is bringing back the cup. 29 years, 30 years? 31 years. They're bringing back the cup tonight.
My favorite part of this entire podcast is Josh refuses to let me talk about anything in my life, but will always talk about the sports teams that he's following.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, pretty much.
Tell me for a minute and just tell me what the Oilers are.
Oh God! All right,
I love you so much,
Justin
Paulina.
Trudeau just called, and you've been exiled from Canada.
Your poutine has been removed. No, okay. So one of the things that we like to do as we kind of wind down, what do you see as the future? What do you want to see? Maybe we can stick on tools, but what do you want to see in customer success? What is something that you're looking for in the future? In our industry, as a leader, as somebody who's been it for a very long time, who has very, very correct opinions on many things, I would like to say. How are you looking forward at the next 10 years? You talk about the last 10 is a little bit difficult. How do we get lighter in the future?
I genuinely believe there needs to be a shift in, and I mean, this is going to sound like a broken record, so I'm just hopping on the same bandwagon, but I do think there needs to be a shift more broadly in SaaS and just tech around what is the value of customer success and, sales versus customer success. I think we might still be in that mindset of sales can do no wrong. And so sales is what we need. And customer success is sort of like the little brother no one's really paid attention to yet. But that little brother's grown up and is doing some big things. And, we really need to give our CS teams, our CX teams, I want to say more holistically, right?
Agreed.
So not necessarily just customer success, but also customer support. If you are working at a bigger company and you have an onboarding, professional services, whatever, so just call it CX as an experience in general, far more credit. And also I would love to see, this is just on a personal pain point in general, is just NPS scores to go away from customer success. I think if that metric exists, it should be with product, and that's about it. But
awesome. Paulina, thank you so much for spending your afternoon with us. This was great. It was great to get to know you. You can see the lightness. You can see the dumbbells have been cleared from your backpack. You have that effervescence right now. Nice.
Effervescence.
Is that the right word? Aura?
Is it? I don't know.
Effervescence. No, that's good. It reminds me of seltzer.
Shine from the window.
It's just I just didn't put any foundation on today.
Yeah. But don't let that startup get to you and lose that effervescence. Stick it all the way through.
I have all of the faith in this startup.
Yes. Amazing.
Okay, but I'm going to get it on the record. Are you coming to CS 100 this year?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Cool.
I just got back into the country and just stepped back onto the CS train. I was literally not
fair. I'll ask you again in a couple weeks.
More things that John thinks our audience cares about, folks. Anyways, it was a wonderful episode. You did great, John. You too,
Thanks so
Paulina.
much, Josh. I appreciate your words.
I was especially snarky this episode. I do feel bad after this, by the way.
I know I know this about him because he'll always send a text message. Oh, dude, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I still love you.
Yeah.
I love you, Josh.
I love you too.
Well, you guys were a pleasure to chat with anyway. And thank you for some of the harder questions too. I was like, I don't know what I would take out. I took everything out. What am I putting back in? So
I love that.
really stumped you there for a second.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.